It started with a single case. A man who had returned from a trip to Africa with a strange illness that no one could identify. At first, everyone thought it was just a bad flu. But within days, the man's condition had worsened dramatically. His skin turned gray, his eyes became bloodshot, and he began to suffer from terrible seizures. Doctors tried everything they could think of to save him, but nothing worked. Within a week, the man was dead. It wasn't until his body was taken to the morgue that things started to get really strange. The staff who worked at the morgue reported that the man's body had started to move on its own, and that he had somehow managed to bite one of the technicians before they could get away. Within hours, that technician had turned into a zombie as well, and had begun to attack the other people in the morgue. The virus spread quickly from there. Within days, there were reports of outbreaks all over the city. The government tried to contain the virus by imposing strict quarantines, but it was too late. People who had been bitten by the infected were already turning into zombies themselves, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Amid the chaos and destruction, a small group of survivors banded together to try and find a way to survive. They were a diverse group, from all walks of life, but they shared one thing in common: a fierce determination to keep living, no matter what. There was Emily, a young nurse who had been working in the hospital when the outbreak began. She had seen firsthand how quickly the virus could spread, and was determined to do whatever she could to help. There was Jack, a retired police officer who had always been prepared for the worst. He had a stockpile of weapons and supplies that he had been hoarding for years, and was more than happy to share them with the others. There was Maria, a single mother who had been forced to flee her home when these zombies attacked. She was fiercely protective of her young daughter, and would do anything to keep her safe. And then there was Tom, a college student who had been studying biology when the outbreak began. He had a keen interest in viruses and infectious diseases, and was convinced that there had to be a cure for these zombie virus somewhere. Together, the group set out to find a safe place to hide from these zombies. They traveled through the city, scavenging for food and supplies along the way, and eventually found a small, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. It wasn't much, but it was defensible. They set up barricades and traps around the perimeter, and took turns keeping watch throughout the night. They knew that they were living on borrowed time, but for the moment, they were safe. As the days turned into weeks, the group began to grow restless. They knew that they couldn't stay holed up in the warehouse forever, but they also knew that they couldn't just keep running from these zombies forever either. They needed a plan. It was Tom who came up with the idea of finding a cure. He had been studying the virus in his spare time, and had discovered that it was caused by a mutation of a known virus. He believed that if they could find the original virus, they might be able to create a vaccine or a cure. It was a long shot, but the group decided to go for it. They set out on a dangerous journey across the city, searching for any clues that might lead them to the virus. They fought off zombies, scavenged for supplies, and risked their lives time and time again, but they never gave up. Finally, after weeks of searching, they stumbled upon an old laboratory that had been abandoned since the outbreak began. Inside, they found a research paper that described the original virus, along with detailed instructions on how to create a cure. Excited by their discovery, the group began working tirelessly to create the cure. It was a long and difficult process, but they refused to give up. They worked day and night, mixing chemicals, testing samples, and refining their methods until they had finally created a viable cure. With the cure in hand, the group set out to find a way to distribute it to the infected. They knew it wouldn't be easy, but they were determined to try. As they traveled through the city, the group came across a large horde of zombies. It was the biggest group they had ever seen, and there was no way to avoid them. They knew they would have to fight their way through. The battle was brutal. The group fought fiercely, using all the weapons and tactics they had learned over the weeks of living in the zombie-infested world. But these zombies kept coming, wave after wave, and it seemed as though they would never win. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, something amazing happened. The infected who had been bitten but not yet turned started to transform back to their normal selves. The cure had worked. The group fought harder than ever, knowing that they were fighting for more than just their own survival now. They fought for the survival of the entire human race. In the end, the group emerged victorious. They had managed to create a cure and had distributed it to the infected, saving countless lives in the process. As the weeks turned into months, the world slowly began to recover. The virus had been eradicated, and these zombies had all been defeated. The survivors were hailed as heroes and were celebrated for their bravery and ingenuity in the face of impossible odds. Life would never be the same again, of course. The world had been forever changed by the outbreak. But the survivors knew that they had done everything they could to make things better, and that was enough. For Emily, Jack, Maria, and Tom, life had taken on a new meaning. They had faced death and survived, and that had given them a new appreciation for life. They would never take anything for granted again. The survivors continued to work on finding a long-term solution for the virus, and they managed to develop a vaccine that would prevent people from getting infected in the first place. They worked tirelessly to distribute the vaccine to every corner of the world, ensuring that no one would ever have to suffer the way they did. As the years passed, life returned to a new normal, and the world began to flourish again. The survivors formed a tight-knit community, always there for one another, and always working towards a better future. Emily, Jack, Maria, and Tom became the leaders of the new world, using their experiences and knowledge to help guide humanity towards a brighter tomorrow. They never forgot the horrors they had faced during the outbreak, but they knew that they had the strength and resilience to overcome any challenge that may come their way. And so, the world moved on from the zombie virus outbreak, but the survivors never forgot the lessons they had learned. They had learned the true meaning of courage, perseverance, and the power of hope, and they would always carry those lessons with them wherever they went.